Welcome back to Not the Same, a podcast that brings you true stories of real people sharing their personal testimonies of transformation. I am your host, Rachel Heimberg. We are a few episodes into the second season, and I am enjoying each opportunity I get to speak with someone, listening as they share a bit of their life with me. To the faithful listener, thank you. If you just found us by chance or because someone might have shared it with you, I'm thankful you're here as well. Please take a minute to review or comment on whatever platform you're using. We're available almost anywhere, so pick your favorite and subscribe or follow. Last time we got to hear from Wendell Jacobs, the husband of another guest I had on the podcast in August of last year. Wendell shared some sad but all too common situations that many children and young people face here. It never ceases to amaze me, though, at the power of kindness to alter someone's life forever. At the end of our chat, I did mention to him that I would be sitting down with the very person who told Wendell about the love of Jesus. Her insistence made all the difference in his life. So I want to introduce you to Katlego Mosia. Katlego is a member of our church here in El Dorado Park. I've known her personally for about 3.5 years, but I'll let her get into the details. She is a mom, a wife, and a blessing to our church in many ways, and she can sing. So, Kat, I want to say thank you so much for taking this time.
Well, thank you.
Start with how you grew up, your background a little bit, what life was like in your early years. We'll go from there.
All right. Well, I'm a Joburger. I was born and bred in Johannesburg, and I've been here forever. Growing up, my life was very simple. My life was very comfortable, matter of fact. My mom did the best she could. Matter of fact, she went over and beyond to make me comfortable. My schooling was always the best. My overall upbringing was very comfortable.
And what about your parents? You only mentioned your mom, so what about a father?
Well, isn't that the cliche? Because he left when I was very young, and he never came back. He did try when I was a little bit older to, have a little bit of a contact situation, but that didn't work out at all. So that's just a part of my life that simply doesn't exist.
Do you have siblings?
I don't. I'm an only child.
You're an only child?
Yeah.
So it's always just been you and her?
Yeah. And she tossed herself into work, trying to have the financial stability to give me the comfort that she didn't have growing up.
So you said you grew up here in Joburg. Was it like here in Soweto? Or were you different places?
We lived in different places, mostly in the East. We lived in Kensington, actually. And then I went to school in the East, and only when I was in grade 5 that we had to move back this side because my mom was trying to find her own place. It was hard for her to get a place because they kept telling her that as a single woman, we can't give you an apartment.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, she just had a lot of trouble trying to find a place of our own. So she ended up getting a shack here in Freedom Park. She just figured that she'd put herself up and stop trying to search for an apartment or a house.
Who did you guys stay with before? Like if you're looking, were you staying with family?
No, let me backtrack. So when I was a baby, she lived alone. And then when I got a little older, then we lived with her friends.
Oh, okay.
And then that was in the East. When we moved to Freedom Park, that's when she was now trying to find stability on her own.
Okay.
Yes.
So was she a young mom?
No. She was 29 when she had me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And never had kids before or anything.
No.
So just...
No.
Wow.
She was very cautious. I think it's because of her own upbringing, where her mom actually gave her to her granny. And then her granny brought her up, and then the family dynamic was just crazy. And she was brought up in Soweto. There was a lot of kids younger than her, even of her grannies. So she was like the kid who had to just fend for herself.
Yeah.
So when she was there, she realized that I can't afford to mess up my life. I only have this one opportunity and I need to do it right.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's why she was more interested in being financially stable.
For sure.
Rather than depending on anyone else, because all her life she really saw that she doesn't have anyone to depend on.
So then when you came along, she probably was like, no, I'm going to do
much
my
better.
best for her.
And she did. She did.
Well, that's nice. Sometimes, it doesn't always work out like that with single moms.
True.
Even if they want to, sometimes they don't, or they repeat the same cycles of chaos and abuse and stuff. So then how old were you when you came here to Freedom Park?
I was 6 years old when I first came to Freedom Park. And then I went back because I was like, I am not living in a shack. Hello.
At 6 years old.
Yes. I was like, yeah, no, this is not for me. You have fun. I'll see you. So I went back to her friends, which was a couple from Aldo's.
Okay.
Practically raised me. They lived in South Hills. So I lived with them in South Hills.
Did they have kids too?
They had 3 kids already. The wife, Anshada, she comes from a Muslim background, which is insane. But she loved me and she told my mom, you need to bring that kid because you're at work all day. She's at home by herself.
Yeah.
You know, when she comes back from school or whatever. So you need to bring her. I don't like the fact that she's by herself all the time like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so I moved to South Hills. That's where I did my grade 1 in an all Afrikaans school.
Okay.
And then
how was that for you? Let's just pause for a second. What year would this have been?
7.
Okay, so in 1997,
Yeah.
we're a few years past the fall of apartheid here. Just a few years past this craziness.
Yeah.
Life here was still pretty up and down and crazy. And then here you are, this little African girl in an all Afrikaans school. Was it fine?
It was. I actually did not feel any hostility ever.
That's amazing.
The only time that I'd ever felt segregation of any kind was when I was much older, and probably because of other influences and whatever. But as a kid, I did not see anything. I was just living my best life. And you must know that the family that I was living with, they were colored and they were very light skinned, so they would pass as white.
Ah.
You see?
So you grew up very multicultural without even realizing that's what was happening.
Yeah.
So you're this little African girl, and your background is Sutu. So your background is Sutu.
Yeah.
Then you're living with this colored family. The mom is
Muslim
background. Yeah. And then now you're going to an all white school in general.
It was Afrikaner.
Yeah. Like you said, living your best life.
I was.
So that was just 2 years.
No, we actually moved from South Hills to Kensington. That's where I went to the school in Kensington for the remainder of my primary school.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then they moved to Roodepoort. That's when I had to move back to my mom. I was like, I'm not going to follow you guys all over.
Yeah.
And I was much older. I was a little bit more confident and comfortable. And I really just missed my mom. Even though she was always there, she would come and go like in the week. She would always just pop in to see how I'm doing.
I was going to ask you, and what about weekends? Would you stay with your mom on the weekends?
Yeah.
You know, depending on your mom's work schedule.
That family dynamic was so fun because their house was huge. So she would come over and stay with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was just like this big extended family. So your mom would just come visit you, hang out with you, spend time with you.
Yeah.
And then she would go back to work and do her thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that was all of your primary?
That was all of my primary school.
So you had told me before that you had met Jesus or gotten saved, however you want to put it, at quite a young age. So how did that get introduced to you? Obviously, you're living with these different people. And how did you even come to know about who Jesus was?
Okay, so this family, although Anshada was from a Muslim background, her husband, he was Christian. And they got saved and they had a very, very good relationship with God. They were my model to see how families should be. They showed me how to have a relationship with Christ. Everything that I know about Christianity up to that point was because of their reference. Because I lived with them, that's how I had access to Jesus, and I knew all the Bible stories, you know, from Sunday school and whatnot. So that's how I came to know about Jesus. I've always had this very, very, very strong conviction in my heart everywhere I went about the knowledge that God is there and you need to have a relationship with him. It would be strange for me to leave the house without praying because Uncle Julian had installed that in us. So everybody, we'd be getting ready for school. It would be chaos. Then you know how it is. And everybody would stop what they're doing. If anybody has to leave the house, and we'd all gather in the dining room and we would pray for the you know, traveling mercies and stuff like that. So that's how I came to know about God.
That's amazing that you were able to just be in that environment that's so healthy and so anti what could have been.
Yeah.
So what about your mom? What was her take like in those young years? Obviously, she's removed herself from a lot of family and friends, but she's working most of the week. So did she go to church with you guys, or did she echo that? Or was she just kind of like, oh, that's good for you, but she does her own thing?
So my mom came from a hectically heavy witchcraft family. And when she left that environment, she was like, I do not want this for myself. Because for some reason, God was just always in communication with her because she had no one else. She would always simply just turn to God, even though she didn't know who God was in the Christian sense.
Yeah.
So she would always call out to God and she would see God working in her life,
Wow.
but she didn't even understand how was this happening. She didn't have the doctrine. She didn't have anything to reference. When we met this family, she was not working anymore. So she was just out looking for a job. She had said a prayer in her sinful state to say, God, we really need help. I need you to help me. And she was just sitting at a bus stop. She asked this lady, do you know someone who needs maybe someone to come and help them with housework or whatever? She had been walking around all day looking for a job and she couldn't find one. She was exhausted, she was hungry, and she was just about to give up. And she was sitting at this bus stop. That's when some lady came and she just sat next to her and she asked her, then, do you not know someone who might need someone to work? And this lady said, yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I do. There's this couple. And that in itself was testament to her to say that God is looking out for me regardless of what's going on in my life. So my mom has a very good relationship with God. She has always been supportive and she would come to church with us. Like I said, she would always be there during the week,
Yeah.
and she'd come on Wednesday services and then she'd go home. And on Sunday, she'd be there as well.
So you had consistency. They really just like pointed you
Right.
to where you needed to go.
Yeah.
So at what point did you find this church?
So that was in 2000. I had moved back to Freedom Park like full time because that family had moved away. So when I came home, we didn't have a church here. And to travel back and forth was insane. Already I was traveling for school. So on the weekends, my mom's like, I don't have that petrol money or taxi fare for you to go on weekends as well. So I then went around looking for a church that resembled what I knew. And I found it with this lady. So she lived in the next street from where we were. So she opened up a little church. And so that's where I would go. Every time I was there, I thought to myself, okay, there's like nothing for me here because it's all adults and they all gather. And I went up to her and I was like, well, why don't you have a Sunday school? What am I supposed to do? Because I was the only kid sitting there. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I'm like, don't worry, I'll come with my own people and I'll teach them. Sure enough, the next week, I had like a whole string of kids filling up the church. It was chaotic, but it was fun because I got to teach them the Sunday school lessons that I was taught when I was growing up.
So let's pause. You came to this little church that this lady had.
Yeah.
And then there was no Sunday school. So you said, don't worry, I'll start the Sunday school for you.
Right.
Let me go get my friends. And you brought them and then taught Sunday school. And was it just a house church?
Yes, it was house church. And my husband was one of those kids that I brought along. So I was like, okay, we're having Sunday school. Sit over here,
Are you guys the same age?
No, he's 3 years older than me.
And he still followed this crazy little girl to
Because I was very bossy and they had never seen anything like me. I was very opinionated.
I've met your children. I can guess.
Yeah,
but they're so smart. You know what I mean? They're not disrespectful.
Yeah, so that's how that started. And then I don't know what went wrong with her, the lady with the church as well. And she was not continuing her church for whatever reason. And then she told me, she's like, we're going to go back to our original church in Honeydew, but there's a church that I went to in Aldos and it's really good. You should go there. I can see that, your life will be completely transformed in that space. I was like, well, say no more. And the very next Sunday, I was at church here in the Porter's house.
And you were 10.
I was 10. I always needed to be in the house of God because I understood that I don't fit in anywhere else.
Yeah.
This is my life. And
well, you had a much different background than
right.
probably almost any child you were in a neighborhood with.
True.
On this side. I mean, it would have been very different.
True.
So you come over here and did you find yourself fit right in?
Absolutely. I was like, these are my people. Where have you been?
Who were some of the people that would have stuck out to you at that point that you either connected with or older people that helped you? Because your mom didn't follow you either, did she? So it was just you coming.
It was just me coming.
So is there anyone that kind of sticks out?
Well, there was this family, the Mayers, and they had 2 daughters. And there was another girl who she's in Pretoria now, Tandega. They were like really close-knit, as well as Emily. And so I kind of gravitated towards them when I first came here. And they were like the type of people that I would always hang around with. After service, we would then just hang out with them and they would invite me for lunch at their house. And then there was Patricia.
Yeah.
We all went to her house. Like Patricia's place was the hangout for all the young people. And the older I became, then Craig and Lieben would always try and make it fun for the young people because they could tell we don't want to leave after church. We just linger about.
You see that now.
Yeah.
Kids don't ever want to leave either.
So they would take us to either the Glen or Southgate for ice cream just to make things a little bit more comfortable for us. So I basically like lived in the church. Anytime the doors were open, I was here. Whether it be in the mornings, whether it be in the evenings, I was just always here. My mom was scared at first because of the evening services or the outreaches far away, impact teams, and we'd come home really, really late. But she was confident and she trusted that I'd come home safely, because I was out doing the will of God. There were times where she would be freaking out because I didn't have a cell phone.
Of course.
It was scary for her, but she knew where I was and she was happy about it.
That is crazy. It has to be the element of your mom saw something in you that was, like you said, she had a confidence. Yeah, there's a trust. No, this is God. It's not just her doing her own things. During this whole time, like your early years or your teenage years, did you ever find yourself wavering?
No.
You never did?
I was, I don't know what's the word, unquenchable?
Unquenchable.
Unquenchable, yeah. I was on fire. It was amazing. And not to toot my own horn, it was just, I loved being in this place and I loved to see people's lives changed.
Yeah.
And I was always on outreach. That's where I found my source of value.
Yeah.
To see other people come into the church, that meant a lot to me. So that's why I was constantly here, whatever was happening.
So I'm sure that you witnessed to people. Obviously, we heard from Wendell, and he said you nagged him for a few years, and he finally came. He said he thinks it was just so you could be quiet.
I was loud.
And he found his place,
Yeah.
But were you just always witnessing? Like, I'm sure people knew at school that you were the church girl.
I was. It was very difficult for me. I think that's what made me love church even more. Because when I was in church, then everybody understood me. We were all like-minded. As opposed to school. School was, I butt heads with so many people. It was very difficult because the kids, I would witness to them, but also I had like this thing to say, you need to like get saved. Don't you get it? And I think it was the very wrong approach.
Intensity.
Yeah, it was intense. That's also what made school very difficult for me. It was very hard for me to socialize at all. As well as the teachers, I had a lot of atheist teachers and they would make me know. I was just as bad though. In my history class, they would tell me something crazy, like about the Big Bang or whatever. I'd write the correct answer and then I'd make like a bubble note on the side. FYI, this is not true because the Bible says blah, 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 blah. So I was also just causing my own trouble.
For you in that sense,
Yeah.
But did you end up going to high school this side?
Yes, I went to Mosia High.
Okay. Not in Aldos, but you went in the south.
Yes.
And then did you matric from there?
I did. Mosia was the school of my choice. It was great. But like I said, it was very intense for me because that's when I was really starting to read the Bible for myself. And I was hectic with my peers. I wish I would have treated them differently. There was one girl that I actually wanted to hunt down because I feel like I was a little bit harsh on her. I found her and I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I judged you so badly. But what I was trying to say was that, Jesus loves you and he cares about you. So
how did she receive that?
She was like, don't worry about it. I think she was just really mad at me. I may have bordered on bullying a bit, but I did make them.
I think sometimes God's grace comes in because when you do it with a good heart, you have people that are self-righteous, but then you also have people that are just genuinely like, you just don't understand why everyone doesn't get it like you.
True.
Like, why don't you just get saved? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I think it was that left behind. It scared me. So I was like, guys, if you don't get saved right now, you're going to get left behind.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So at what point did your husband come in and did you see him? How did you guys meet?
So Wendell and my husband were really, really, really good friends. And they were inseparable. I don't know if they went to the same primary school. I can't remember. But they were in the same high school. And at home, they were together. So I was just like the third person among them. And when Wendell got saved, he started coming to church like from the jump.
Yeah.
He got it immediately. And then my husband came along and As soon as he got here, everything from his previous life just fell away and he got radically saved.
Did he get saved because of you or because of Wendell?
I think it was because of the both of us, because he was just like, where did my people go?
Well, yeah, I guess you said it's the three of you.
Yeah. So he was like, okay, what happened here? And so he just followed us to church.
And you were from the same neighborhood?
Right. My husband and I lived in the same street, and Wendell was a street further down. So he got saved and he was on fire for God. He's always had a crush on me, like since the very beginning when I first came to Freedom Park. And he would always tell me that. I was like, you're not in my league. I don't think so.
That's a little intense.
Yes. Until he came to church and then he stopped paying attention to me. I was like, okay, excuse you.
Now you're hurt.
What is your problem? Yeah, he stopped. He was like,
because he had a new love now. It was Jesus.
He did. And that bothered me. I won't lie. I was like, excuse me. First of all, I'm the one who brought you to church. But I'm glad that he did that because then he was building his relationship with God rather than pursuing me, because I was not the prize. God was.
Yeah.
A few years later, he then came back, and I think I was in like grade 11. Then he was like, yeah, so we're getting married now. I was like, okay.
I promise you that is literally everyone in LG. Everyone in this church for like so many years. It was just like a business transaction. You like me, I like you. Let's get married.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, where's the romance?
Yeah. We got teased a lot because when people would ask me who he was like my brother. That's how I perceived them all my life. And so it was Lindsay actually was like, didn't you say this guy was your brother? Now what's going on?
You're like, I was just kidding.
Yeah. Because of my lack of siblings, if I'm that close to you, I will call you brother. I will call you sister, because I've always longed for a sibling. So that's why I use that word, even though it wasn't accurate.
But if you look at Bible language, it was very similar to that.
Yeah.
Because it's not how we now in our modern mindset that we perceive brother and sister. It's that it designates a closeness of relationship.
Yeah.
Like how close are you to somebody? That they're like family.
Yeah. So then we got married in 2010, just after I matriculated. It wasn't grand or anything. And we just went to McDonald's after the wedding. It was fun. We're young, we broke, we don't care, We moved in together here, and that was okay for a couple of years. And then things just went south after that. It hit me like a ton of bricks, honestly. I don't even remember what happened. It got bad very quickly. And then I found myself frustrated, like all the time. I would come to church and I was frustrated here because I was crumbling full. Everywhere I went, I was just like in so much pain all the time because of the quarrels that we had amongst each other. Like my husband and I, we couldn't seem to get along. I would come to church and people would be like, how are you doing? I'm like, ah! And I really didn't want that. So it's actually the main reason. I remember the last time I came to church was this one morning. I got up like normal. I was coming to church. I already had jazz and I sat on my bed and I just started crying. And I was like, I can't go to church in this state. Like, I won't stop crying because I was in so much pain. I didn't come to church that morning. And then he was feeling very sad about my state because he had stopped coming to church for a year or two at that point.
So let me pause really quick because I know this is not his story and I don't want to get too bogged down because this isn't his story to tell, right? But obviously, I mean, you've known him like your whole life practically. And you had this relationship and then you get married. But at the time you guys got married, you're both involved in church. It was my understanding that you guys were both involved in ministries and outreaches and like all this stuff. So was the friction caused because one of you saw the other one slipping first, or was it outside influences you think that caused tension in your home?
It was all of that. It was a heart issue because of something that may have happened in church. And then you would sit in church with like your bruised whatever. It was like a foothold for the devil then to just start whispering, oh, did you see she looked at you a certain way? Then your desire to be in church isn't as much as it used to be. And then you would have these influences from work that would be like, hey, you want to hang out? And then next thing you know, you're hanging out with someone that you shouldn't be hanging out with. I think that's where the slip was. And then I was in full panic because I was like, that's not what we do. Like, we don't do that, period. And like I said, I can be very intense. And I think that was just fear on my end because, like Pastor Stephen said the last time, although we're saved, there are certain characteristics about ourselves that we don't know that are still in play in the background somewhere. So I still had a lot of fear in my heart, in my life. And it's probably because of my father not being around.
Yeah.
That would play a role in a way that I was not even aware of. Because that family that I was living with as well, I was detached from them. So I had this fear to say, oh my goodness, now I'm going to lose him. I lost them. I never knew this one. And so I suppose I was intense.
Trying to grasp.
Trying to grasp. And I suppose that was smothering, which made him pull away even more.
And sometimes I think when one person in a relationship is more saved or more spiritual, seems like they're doing better, it can be easy to drag. Don't you want to do right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, it comes out of fear and also just you want to save face, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And you want to make sure everything's fine.
Right. Yeah, that was very, very frustrating on my end. Honestly, trying to save face all the time. Because as much as you want this resolved, you also don't want people to think badly of you and what's going on in your life. So that's why it was very difficult for me to come to church, because I knew that I was going to have to face the people.
Yeah.
And they would ask me things, and for some reason, I can't keep my mouth shut. Something that I'm working on, honestly. So if you'd ask me, I'd totally just rip into it, and it's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to do that. And I just stayed away so that I wouldn't do that.
So he had stopped coming,
Yes.
and you kept coming for a couple of years?
2 years, yes.
2 years. And so, like you said, the emotional strain of this up and down, up and down. You said that finally broke you.
Yeah.
You just missed the one service. And then what happened? Did you just find yourself never going back?
Yeah. I had planned to go back because I really couldn't gather myself in that moment. And I told myself I'm going to go for the evening service because Jasmine was there. And she's like, why are you crying? You know? So he was like, let's just go to the zoo. Let's just, get some fresh air. And we ended up spending the entire day at the zoo. And then when we came back, it felt heavy for me to go anywhere because I was just miserable all the time. I couldn't smile. I could not.
Do you think it was depression?
I think it was definitely depression. Yeah. I wanted to be by myself, and he was barely home at this time. He would leave me in the house. I'd complain. I'm like, I am not your fridge.
I've never heard that term. That's awesome.
That's how it was. And then I would just go to work. On my way to work, I'd be driving to work and I'd just be crying, bawling my eyes out. So I was just very miserable and I didn't want to be around anybody.
Yeah.
So it's not like I went out woohoo to the club or whatever. Yeah. I was just at home all the time. I didn't even want to see my mom because I might just tell her what's going on. And I knew if I told my mom, then, this would be the end of it and there'd be no going back.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that either. So I just stayed home with my kid. I would fetch her from daycare and come home and I'd stay at home. That was my routine for like another 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. All by myself. The only person I had was the one lady from work. She was just very helpful because she was very funny. She would just like make me laugh. And so that's the only person I would let in.
And would people from church try to get a hold of you guys and try to contact you guys?
Yeah, they would. One person, Melissa, when she would come to me, I would feel that, okay, I'm safe here. And then just before I came back, Natasha and Wendell came to my house. And they kind of like lit the spark that brought me all the way back.
So did you ever come at all the whole time?
No.
Did you not come one time?
No.
During this time, obviously, you're battling depression, which we can definitely call it that now. I mean, you had all the signs of it, this emotional turmoil. How was your relationship with God?
I was mad. Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. I was so mad because I was like, all my life, I've been on the track.
Yeah.
And how could you let this happen to me? I got married young so that I can avoid all of this nonsense. And here I am smack in the middle of it. I was so mad at God. I remember even in my state, when I first started work, there was this girl at work. I would tell her about God. But then I feel convicted because I'd be like, yeah, but I don't even like God right now because he let me go through this. I didn't have to be humiliated in the way that I have been, So I was very mad at God. And then she got saved, this girl at work, because of me witnessing to her, telling her about God. And I wasn't even at my peak because I was broken myself.
Yeah.
And then she got radically saved. But I remember she played this song. And when I heard the song, it was as if God was just like talking to me, And she played this song, and I was like, oh my goodness, I long to be in God's presence like that again. I don't want to be where I am. I am miserable. I can't change my circumstances. My business is out there, and it's whatever at this point. And so there's nothing left for me to lose. So I want to go back to God. And that's when I started praying again, as opposed to like yelling at God. So she sparked that.
I've heard of that more often than
Yeah.
you would think, where somebody is totally either backslidden or not doing well, and they witness to someone because they know they're supposed to.
Yeah.
They know the truth. I mean, even when you're in a bad state, you know the truth.
Yeah.
And then that person gets saved, and then that person is the one that helps them go back. God can use anybody. He can use anything. He can use any circumstance. So she inspired you to get going again. How long were you out of church?
2.5 years, lingering on to 3.
And so what made you finally take that last step to, I need to go back? Because it was after we were already here, right?
Yeah.
We had just gotten here.
Yeah. Something happened with my husband. We had already been living separately. And so I was like, you know what? This is it. I'm going to be done with this divorce by Friday. I'm sick and tired of this life. I'm out of here. And then on my way that morning, I called my boss. I said, I'm not coming in. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to take the morning off. I'm going to work in the afternoon. My intention was to go to Kliptown, to the divorce court. And as I drove up, it was prayer. I walked into prayer and I sat down. Again, I was bawling my eyes out. And I just prayed and I said, God, please help me. I don't want to make yet another bad decision. I need your guidance. You need to spell this out for me because my mind and my head right now is loud. There's too much noise. I need to just hear your voice. That was my prayer. I stood up and I walked out. And as I'm trying to start my car, Spa comes out. I had never met Spa. I've heard about him because I knew Snare. I've never met him. He doesn't know me. We don't know each other. There's a lot of people that I didn't know because I was gone for so long.
Yeah.
And he comes and he's like, yo, I'm not trying to even be in your business. I don't know you. But God told me to tell you that you need to stay put because whatever it is that you're asking for, He's working on it. You need to stay put and you just need to serve Him. Don't do anything. Just serve God. That to me was I got goosebumps because I was like, well, that was quick. And I'm glad that he was obedient to God because had he not came out to speak to me, so many times that God has told me to tell other people and I would shy away, right?
Wow.
Don't do anything.
And he didn't know you.
He doesn't
You
know
said,
me.
and you didn't know him.
He doesn't know me. And right there and then I was like, okay, well, this is your baby now. I'm going to listen to you. I don't even know what to do. So I'm going to just do what you said I must do. And then I went to the library. And a couple of days after that, Wendell and Natasha came to my house. Wendell also, he kind of knew what was going on. He actually got an idea for the first time, I think, of the extent of the situation. And he was like, well, why didn't you tell me this was all going on? Like, what is your problem? Because I didn't tell anybody, you see? And so he was really mad and they just came to see how I was doing.
Because he's also friends with your husband, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So they just talked to you and basically showed love and support.
Right. When they came, then I was like, you know, it's kind of like an olive branch. And it made it easier for me to come because now if I do come, then I'm just going to go sit with them. And so it made me a little bit more comfortable with coming back.
And we didn't know you.
Yeah, you didn't know me at all.
I remember when everyone's like, baby, baby. Like, who's baby? Because we never said, but that was your nickname for like ever.
Yes. Yeah, so
you come back.
I came back.
We've talked a little bit, and it was a little bit of an adjustment for you to just get back in the swing of things. But as far as a heart issue, was it like immediate, or did you find you had to really work for it? Describe that coming back.
Okay, so salvation for me, second time around, was before I even got to church. It was ignited when I was at work, and that's when I had the longing for God. But then I didn't come to church immediately thereafter, right? But my relationship with God was getting stronger. It was actually stronger than it had ever been before because of the circumstances in my life. That's when I could see that, you know, I have nothing else. I simply have to trust God. There is nothing else for me to do. So then my prayers would shift to, I need to see the miracles that the Bible tells us about. I need to see that come alive in my own life. And when I came back to church, my relationship with God was very, very good. But I was still fearful of this place because I regarded this place as my sanctuary. But this is also where I felt the most pain because of a whole lot of things that was going on. I was very uncomfortable. I was very insecure. Even though I'm not the one who caused the trouble in my life, I'm still a part of it, and people probably view me a certain way. So I was insecure in that sense, and I was very withdrawn.
It's hard when a good place has bad memories.
Right.
It is a mental thing to get past that.
Yeah. So everybody made me feel welcome. I don't even want to lie. There were people that were overjoyed to see me, and I was very happy I could be here with them. And also, it was encouraging to people that I grew up with because they know me as the girl who's always been going to church. And when I stopped going to church, I understood that I broke their spirit. Now they didn't come anymore because I had stopped coming to church. So for me, it was very difficult at first. But as soon as I got here, things started to change. And
the first step is always hard.
And then you came along, you're like, what's up? My name's Rachel. Then I was like, my people.
Yeah. It was funny because I remember meeting Jazz first, your daughter.
Yeah.
But people seemed like they knew her. It was when I was subbing in and helping their Sunday school class for a short time.
Yeah.
But she seemed like she was just like in it, not like a new kid. And then people started saying something about, like I said, baby. No one used your name, your proper name.
Yeah.
Then I realized when I met you, oh, you're her mom.
Yeah.
I had seen her a few weeks before I think I even met you. You were quite quiet when we first got here. Just stay in your own space and, quiet. And I remember people excited to see you. There was a lot of connections I didn't make. And then obviously I got to know you. Now it's been a long time.
Yeah.
You've been back longer than you were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great.
It's a cool thing, huh? When you think, oh, I've passed that. Now I'm redeeming the time.
Yeah.
Things happen.
It was a speed bump.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're over it now.
Regarding your circumstances, we've seen change.
Yeah.
You can see God moving.
True.
And you can see God's working.
Yeah.
God's going to sort it out. And I'm confident that He will.
True. And that's why I don't even stress myself about nothing anymore. I'm just confident that God knows what He's doing. And so I'm just going to be here. Sometimes it's easier said than done. But I've since learned that it doesn't matter how big I think my circumstances are.
Yeah.
God knows what He's doing. And as long as I stay in His will, yeah.
So we never said, but when did Kumo happen?
That was when I was gone. So I was like, I'm out of here. This is my parting gift. I didn't want to have an only child. As an only child, I know how difficult it was. So I was like, I am going to have this last baby and I'm out. So that's when Kumo happened. And
that was in the midst of all the crazy stuff.
Of the turmoil.
Wow.
But he is so funny. He is so funny.
You can never imagine life without him, that kid. No way.
Oh. And he's so direct with everything. He's always telling his father, so when are you coming to the evening service?
Yeah.
I remember when his dad first came back to church, he would take him by his hand. He's like, we're going to pray. And he would drag him to the altar.
Oh.
So that was really funny.
But God honors that. God's time is never our time. And we don't like that saying because we don't like it to take long.
Yeah.
But I think what you said, you just do what you do. You're faithful. You pray. You let God sort it out. You're not even worrying about the details.
Yeah.
And one day, all the pieces are going to fit. And it's going to be as if, not that it never happened, but you're going to think, oh, that was just temporary. It's not even going to be relevant. Like, look at us now. I really believe that because I've seen it happen way too much.
Yeah.
God wants people to be saved more than we do. God wants people to serve Him more than we do. Sometimes it's hard, especially if you like to control and you said you're a force.
Yeah.
You want people to do right.
Yeah.
And maybe God's like, calm down.
Yeah.
Let me be God.
Yeah. Stop being the Holy Spirit. Yeah, it's true.
And we all struggle with that. But as an observer, I see little things, changes, and, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but things I've noticed.
Yeah.
Baby steps and things are changing. And it's terrifying to give up control to God when you've done it before and you feel like it's let you down. True. Not that God's let you down, although the devil lies to us and says it's God. But when life just doesn't go as it's planned or we get hurt, and it takes a while sometimes to untangle those knots and to be not fearful to let it go.
Yeah.
So I, for one, am excited about the future. I really, really believe that it's closer than you think.
It is, definitely is. So much has changed just in this past year. I remember there was a prayer that we said last year at the marriage seminar, actually. And ever since then, I can see small changes, like you just said now, that have happened in our lives to date. Things are just falling into place, just as God had promised me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. And I know that this entire situation, as painful as it was, it has made me a better person.
Absolutely.
And it will definitely make, the family dynamic stronger.
Yeah.
Because we now know what is at stake, what's to be lost. And so I promise you, I'm a completely different person. I think my relationship with God is much stronger, better than it ever was in the beginning, because I was fairy tales and unicorns when I was first saved. I always had everything I needed.
Yeah.
So for me to lose what I thought was the most important thing in my life shattered my world. As a privileged kid, everything is yours and you don't have to suffer any kind of loss or whatever.
Yeah.
And so for me to lose, it was devastating. But for God to restore it was even better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what would you tell yourself if you could tell Katlego before?
Yeah.
When you were going through those things and when you saw your world crumbling? Now, in hindsight, what
Yeah.
would you tell your past self?
So what I would say to myself and what I always tell everyone else is that everything that God does is strategic in your life. As painful as that might have been, or whatever it is that you're facing is, what's to come will probably be far better than that. And if you're going to hold on to that, you will never get to experience what's ahead of you. So just trust that God is in control. As cliche as that sounds, when you truly believe it and you truly let God move in your life, you'll see that everything that He puts in your life will be far better than what you could have built for yourself. I thought I was in control.
Yes.
And I was happy with my little control behind the scenes. Now I have no control. I don't even try to control anything. I just let it be. And I pray and I believe that God will help me. To date, God is answering prayers from 2013, this year, and last year. I'm getting all those prayers answered now.
I can be definitely that type of personality to like control.
Yeah.
We think control is security, right? But like you said, the more you let things go and let God do it,
Yeah.
it's so freeing to be like, I don't even have to worry about it. I don't even have to stress about it. I mean, yeah, your emotions might be like, oh, you're upset. But in general, like you just like,
well, that's not my problem.
I'm fine. I'm not even like worried because I know God's got it under control.
True.
And I think that, at least for me, and it sounds like you as well, there's things we couldn't have learned without circumstances being how they are,
True.
And we know God doesn't cause things and He doesn't cause people to sin, but He definitely allows things to happen in our life that we need. And I think people looking at your steadfastness and how you're faithful and that you can still show love and kindness even when people don't even deserve it, I think is a testimony in and of itself. An example of like where you just let go and let God. I hate that term.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy, but it really is true, Sometimes we just have to let go and let God work. I'm excited and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing the ups and downs. It was a unique perspective and I really like that. I mean, you were on fire from the word go and still, there was a time when you had a crisis moment and you had to sort out.
Yeah, I had to cry out to God. Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I do this whole thing is God is so faithful.
Yeah.
God is so faithful no matter the circumstance, no matter how good or how bad you have it. We all need Him.
True.
And no matter how long we've been a Christian, we still need Him. I find like more and more and more.
We get so comfortable and we forget what it's about. It just becomes routine to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's one of the main reasons I love doing these interviews, even though sometimes it's stressful to try to sort it out and, make time. But every time I'm reminded, God is in the business of changing lives. And He's so good at His job. God is so good to be so faithful. And it always renews in me.
Yeah.
Because I know what He's done in my life.
Right.
And then He's done in your life. And everyone I talk to, and I'm just like, God, you're so good.
Yeah.
You're so good.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to you for being here. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who is still listening. Without a listener, the story can't be heard. So if you would like to contact me with questions, comments, or ideas, or you just want to say hi, introduce yourself, please do so through the dedicated podcast email. notthesame.cfm, as in Christian Fellowship Ministries, notthesame.cfm@gmail.com. I will do my best to reply. As always, please share these stories with someone else. Don't underestimate the power of a transformed life. Before we sign off, if you are not a Christian, or were but have since turned away, or maybe you just find yourself lost like we heard today, John 3:16 says God sent his only son Jesus to die for our sin. A simple prayer is all it takes to start over. Acknowledge your sin, recognize Jesus paid the price for that sin, and sincerely ask him to forgive you, and he will. Until next time, this is Rachel Heimberg, and you've been listening to Not the Same.